I want to start with this. An article from Bella De Palo, PhD from Psychology Today. The United Nations report assembled statistics on the percentage of women who reach their late 40s without ever having married. It is increasing. The average age at which many marry for the first time, of those who do marry, that is increasing too, and the proportion of people in their late 40s who are discovered or who are divorced or separated also increasing. Global averages were reported as well as separate statistics for 8 regions of the world. Examples of countries in the 8 regions are listed at the end. Okay. So, percentage of women, and I'll tell you later why this is important. Hey, by the way, I have a YouTube channel if you want to watch me on YouTube. And I'm going to start posting videos on YouTube that I don't elsewhere. So check that out at The Angry Therapist. Percentage of women in their late 40s who had never been married in 2010 worldwide, 4.3% of women get to their late 40s without ever being married. Differences by region are striking. So in Australia and New Zealand, 1 out of every 7 women in their late 40s has never been married. In Central and Southern Asia, the same is true for only about 1 in about 100 women. So I know if you're not a stats person, this might be kind of boring. But basically, in all 8 regions, the percentage of women who have never been married has increased in the 2 decades between 1990 and 2010. Worldwide, it has increased by 1.2 percentage points from 3.1% to 4.3%. The biggest increase occurred in Australia and New Zealand, a remarkable increase of 9.7%. It's almost 10% from just 4.4% in the 1990. So why is this important? There is indications that the number of lifelong single people may increase dramatically in the upcoming years, at least in some regions. And they estimate that by the time today's young adults in the U.S. reach the age of 50, which is how old I am, which still blows my mind, about 25% of them will have been single their entire lives. To have a cohort of 50-year-olds in which 1 out of 4 have never been married will transform the social, political, and economic landscape in ways we cannot fully imagine. I'm reading this because there is a swell that I believe is turning into a wave. I wrote this book called Single on Purpose, and I wrote it about three or 4 years ago. And I noticed, and that book is all about connecting to yourself first. And it was because a lot of my clients were desperately trying to find love without connecting to themselves first. And it's not called Single Forever. You know, it was just the idea of connecting to you first, right? But when I was writing that book, I noticed the swell. And it was a swell of people who wanted to put themselves first before finding someone else. People who started to have some non-negotiables, what they wanted love to look like, things they no longer wanted to tolerate, right? So there was this kind of like energy, this swell, this this generation starting to tear down old blueprints, not wanting to be like their parents, right? I grew up in a family where, and my family was small, but my parents never showed affection. They were basically in survival mode. And I think being like Korean in that old school generation, divorce was not an option. I truly believe that my parents would have been happier if they had divorced. They were like friends. They were like roommates. I've never seen my parents kiss. I've never seen them hold hands. Like my dad would flirt, but it would always be like joking. My mom would always push him away. And anyway, I'm just saying that because I feel like we now have non-negotiables. We have seen our parents. We have realized the hard work it takes to be in a relationship, right? We have realized that courtship is very different than building a relationship. And I think we have finally started to put ourselves, our lives, our desires, our wants first over sacrificing that to be with someone else, right? And so I noticed this swell. And so my book, Single on Purpose, I think hit a nerve. And I think that's why that book, I think, is the most quote unquote successful if you measure by book sales. But now what's happening is I think there's the swell is turning into a wave. So now I think I think being self-partnered is it's like a new box to check, almost like it's actually a legitimate option, when before that was never an option. You know, before, the idea of being single or single forever was like that didn't even make sense, you know, because we have put marriage and partnership on such a pedestal that the idea that you could be single and be happy wasn't even fathomable. But now I think people are, and not everyone, but I think people are saying, if I don't find someone that I want to invest in, I will find happy on my own, you know, and I think it's empowering. The irony is that when you stay in that space for a while, you actually attract someone pretty fast. It's when you say I don't want a relationship when it usually comes, right? But anyway, I just think it's really interesting. And the other thing that's happening, obviously now, is monogamy not being the only option. So obviously, open relationships, and you know, it kind of goes under the umbrella of the theme of customization. And I think that whether we're talking about relationships, marriage, our lives, or how we parent, whether we're talking about the kind of business we want to build, our fitness, our diet, like everything is about customization. Everything is about tearing down old blueprints and living in a way that feels honest to us. And so we are customizing everything. So I think what's going to happen is, even with marriages, and I got to say, I think a lot of people think I'm anti-marriage because I was divorced, but I'm not. I'm pro-marriage. I think marriage can be one of life's beautiful creations, collaborations. But I also don't believe in the kind of marriage that our parents had, right? So I do believe in customizing your relationship or marriage in a way that works for you, that works for both of you, or maybe more, you know, depending on your relationship model. And I think that's what's going to happen. Is I think whether you are single or you're in an open relationship, or poly, or you are in a monogamous relationship, it doesn't really matter. What people are going to start doing is they're going to start customizing. So let me give you an example of a customization, because people think, like, when I talk about customization, they instantly go to like sex and intimacy and can you have multiple partners? Sure, that stuff can be customized, but also, why do we have to live in one house? You know? And so what I mean by that is, my partner Vanessa said, I think like a year ago, she said, you know what would be my dream is if we had like an apartment. So we live in Altadena, which is like 20 minutes away from kind of the city. It's a little bit up in the hills. But what if we had an apartment like in the city, like Los Feliz, where, like, you know, Los Feliz kind of feels a little bit like New York. You know, there's coffee shops and you walk around the I was going to say the boulevard, which makes me sound really old, but there's a street called Hillhurst, and it's lots of coffee shops, and I used to live right there, so you could just get up and walk, and lots of people watching and stuff like that, right? And she said, what if we had an apartment there So we have our house, but then we have an apartment there, and then we rotate, and one of us can go there for 3 days and not be a parent and have our freedom. And we could do whatever we want. We could just stay in the fucking apartment, order pizza, and do nothing, or we could, go do whatever, right? See friends, work. And I remember when she said that to me, that there was activation because it didn't fit the model that I grew up with, which is the picket fence, the porch swing. Uh, if you're in a marriage, you guys live together, you share a bed, and it just kind of made me think. And I remember feeling the resistance, right? Well, cut to this week, Vanessa is away with our daughter, and this week I have to myself, right? So for this full week, I'm at home and I have it to myself, and it's very strange because I haven't had this in over a year. Because usually, one of us travels or goes somewhere, and then the other one is at home, watching our daughter, taking our daughter to school and all that. But it's summer right now, and so she took our daughter, and so it's usually not the case where one of us, the one that is the free parent, is at home. Usually the person that's traveling is the one without the kid. And so what I'm experiencing in this week, and this is only like day 2, is like the freedom to just do whatever the fuck I want. Like wake up whenever I want, you know, um, since I work from home, make my own schedule, go work out, I could leave at 8:30 to a diner. I could, do basically everything I did when I was single. I could right now, after this podcast episode, just get on my motorcycle and ride to the beach. I could do whatever. And so that freedom I haven't tasted in a long time. And so what I'm realizing is her idea would actually be amazing. What I'm realizing is, after I work through my anxious attachment and I start tearing down some old definition of what love, marriage, family, that life looks like. The idea to have 3 days to yourself and be completely free, and then you come home to family, and of course, day 3 or 4, I'm gonna really miss them, and I'm gonna want to be around them, and that's okay too, right? So to actually have family life, and then to have, like, the empowering moments of when you were single, all combined into a customized relationship slash marriage, would be amazing. And I think the co-parenting part of that is also unique and different, in that I think people who have a solid relationship. I'm talking about people who get divorced and hate each other, and they're, playing chess with their children, and they're being manipulative. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people um, whose marriages have expired. They care and have respect for each other, and they co-parent well. I find that system, or that, um, is actually, I think, more powerful, and maybe even healthier than the classic model of two people parenting, being under the same roof, and all the stresses that come with that. This idea of, like, you're a parent for a week, and then they're a parent for a week, and this kind of passing of batons. This idea of co-parenting, I think it's actually healthier. And I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback, but again, customizing. So that element of co-parenting while you're married, uh, that's I don't know if I don't know anyone who has done that. And and I'm curious about if that model would make couples miss each other, would give someone their kind of connection to self, room to be themselves and to be free. The when you're single and you kind of catch that momentum, and you kind of have a cape, and I remember the stretches of singlehood where um, I would just be driving around in this little two-seater rag top, blasting music on my motorcycle, going to diners, just doing things and feeling really good. Um, the word Vanessa uses is untethered, but just feeling really good about life. So that space is medicine. I think is prescribed, and I think that we could lose that when we get into a relationship or a marriage, and we lose our sense of self / identity. And then when we have a kid or children, it's so hard. It's so hard to put ourselves first because our child then becomes the priority, and then everything kind of like is stacked underneath that. And so, stretched over time, like I get why our parents slept in separate rooms and had resentment, and I get why there was no romance, and I understand why um, it was so hard, and I don't think it has to be. Anyway, it's just an exciting time that we are just questioning old models across the board, right? It's not just with relationships. I mean, it's with fitness, it's with, how we build businesses, how we work, how we play. So we're questioning everything. And we are now customizing something that feels honest to us. Anyway, let's get to our question today. All right, part one. She says, left marriage of almost 10 years for a parent and son sports team. Have broken up with this person multiple times to go back to husband. Now, husband left his new girlfriend and agreed to work on the marriage with me, and I'm back wanting. So she calls the person that she left the marriage for AP. That's that person, right? And so now now she's back with AP. She's struggling with having no sexual desire for husband, but I know I want my family back. All right, so she was married for 10 years. She left for a parent on her son's sports team, and they have broken up multiple times because she wanted to go back to her husband because she loves the idea of family. And now she went back to the son's parent on the sports team, but she's conflicted because she's really wanting family back. So I guess what she's saying is she has no sexual desire for husband, but she really loves the idea of family. She misses this idea of family life. This is a great question, especially with what we're talking about today, or what I opened with, this whole customization. And then on this other side, she has a relationship with this other person, and I don't know how that's going, but it sounds like there's a lot of ambivalence and going back and forth. So here's my thing. Why do you have to wait? Scratch that. Okay, how important is sexual desire with whoever you're with? How important is that to you? That's my first question. And I'm assuming it's not just sexual desire, it's intimacy, it's romance, it's, chemistry, it's all of that. So you're saying that is lacking with your ex-husband completely. No sexual desire, she says, but she's willing to almost sacrifice that to have family back. I don't know. For me, the connection I have with my partner, so intimate, the closeness, the sexual chemistry, the vulnerability, the romance, like, to me, that's foundational. I don't know if I can be with someone and just almost be like, our family runs well. I don't really see you in that kind of way. So we're almost like buddies. but I love family. Like, why can't you have family and be in a relationship where um, there is sexual desire and closeness? So if you don't have that with your ex-husband, my question is, was that ever there? And can you see that rebooting, right? Like, are you guys both, because you say in your question that your husband left his new girlfriend to try again with you in the marriage. Well, is it salvageable? You know, it sounds like you guys are good platonically as far as being parents and having a family, but can you restart the intimacy? Now, if that's possible, I would attempt that, and you have to communicate in your ex-husband. You guys have to be on the same page. And I think it's going to take lots of work. It may involve not only therapy, but like an intimacy coach, there's going to be homework. If I would give that a try, I wouldn't just say, I'm going to go back with my ex-husband, even though there's no sexual desire. I'm going to sacrifice that piece of my life because I think that's a huge part of our lives. And I'm just going to sacrifice that to have a family life. No, life is short. Like, you should have everything, right? So I would try that. And then if that doesn't work, then I would say, okay, I still value family life, and I could have an awesome relationship with my ex-husband, and we could be friends and pull from our hearts, and we could consider each other and still be in each other's lives, and maybe even be like best friends, right? But then I could also have sexual desire and intimacy with someone else. And that would be the alternative, right? So that's what I would do. I would first have a conversation with my ex-husband. Hey, you want to give this another shot? And if you do, we got to do some work. We can't just, here's the thing. The round two, right? When you give relationships another shot, they don't just magically happen because time has passed or because people have new hairstyles. There has to be interchange. There has to be a new dynamic. There has to be new tracks laid. People have to have gone through some kind of journey, inner journey, and come back. There has to be secondary change that's not irreversible. There has to be some evolution and growth. So the relationship is like two different versions of you and your partner, ex. So it's like you're meeting someone new for the first time, right? It's almost like that marriage has died, and now you're meeting someone new, even though you're not. And that's what sets you up for a potential successful second attempt. If not, the problems that existed in that marriage, they're still there because the dynamic that you have with your ex is still there, right? So there's going to be work. It's not just about like, okay, well, let's bring sex toys in the room or let's explore kinks. I mean, maybe, but it's going to be more than that. It's going to have to do with your the foundational relationship tracks, right? The dynamic of the relationship. If throughout that marriage he went from your mouth to your nipple, meaning the dynamic change where you saw him as a partner, and then by the end of the marriage, maybe 10 years later, you see him more like your son. I'm just using this as one dynamic, which I see often. That's going to require a significant reboot. That's going to require people to grow and change in a way where you start to see your ex as not your son, but your partner, right? And that's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of inner work. So get on the same page. And if he's down and he's like, I'm willing to roll my sleeves and do this, I think you guys have a shot. And I think it's worth that shot, because if it doesn't work, at least you guys could say we tried, it didn't work, we played it out, but we still value each other and our family. And we also want more. We also want romance and butterflies and hot sex and, whatever, right? And then you could find that with someone else. It doesn't have to be this or that. You could still customize and build something that you will thoroughly enjoy, that both of you guys will create separately that has overlap, that can be beautiful. Anyway, thank you for asking me this question. I think many people. I've noticed many people now in their 40s and 50s who got married younger, and their marriage has been 10 years, 15 years. A lot of this like high school sweethearts, college sweethearts, and now have kids. They so many of them have this dilemma where it's like, my marriage has died, or I don't see my partner in that way. We're not having sex, whatever. But I really value family. I really value us as a unit, and the home that we built, the life that we have. And so I think many people are stuck kind of in this. It's a generational thing. I think many people around my age, and I'm just saying that there's a chance that your marriage can reboot, but it does require a lot of work. It's not just about reading books or watching videos. And then if that doesn't work, you can customize. You can have your family life and hopefully a healthy relationship, friendship with your ex, and still go find quality intimacy, or the kind of intimacy that you want. I think you could have it all. Anyway, thank you for listening. Be well.